When you have an idea for a new business or venture, is you should talk about it. People don't talk about their ideas. I don't know why. They think people are going to steal their idea, or they think people are going to say that their idea is dumb, and then they just never kind of follow through with it. I think for a lot of people who are hesitant to like jump into entrepreneurship, I think what's going to help you the most is if you talk about it with the people that are close to you. Talk about your ideas. Speak, because then you literally speak it into existence. Like you have an idea, you talk about it. Someone gives you their perspective on it, and you think about it. You can think with people, like use people as your sounding board, man. Like we're all human, we all talk about random stuff all the time.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the 1% Podcast. I'm your host, Vin, and
I'm Shane.
And today we are joined by our good friend, Raz, founder of Talent Hackers. Raz, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Vin. Appreciate you having us, or having me. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, man. Well, we're super excited to get into it, talk about, what you got going on. So give the listeners a little bit of a background. Who are you? What's a bit of your story? What are you doing now? What's Talent Hackers? Just whatever you feel like.
Yeah, of course. My name's Raz. I'm on my second venture now, entrepreneur. Went to the University of Maryland, started off there after college, had no idea what I wanted to do. Started selling on Amazon. Been in e-commerce for the last 5 years. Built a large Amazon aggregator business, which was, a roll-up of Amazon private label brands. Recently, I've actually started an offshore staffing agency that helps e-commerce brand owners hire offshore talent. So in my Amazon aggregator company, we hired a ton of people offshore, and I've had like this team, like remote team building experience pretty much like all my life. Even in high school, like built this. Yeah, I was in network marketing, so I was building teams over Zoom, and kind of like I've always like all of my work has been online and in a remote environment. I've never really worked in an office, and so for the longest time, I've just been able to like train people and work with people virtually. And so I have this offshore staffing agency, which I really like because it's allowing entrepreneurs to get access to talent early on in their startup journey at an affordable rate. It's also helping established companies become more efficient and increase productivity. So to make that all make sense, if you are a entrepreneur and you have a startup, we know that 95% of businesses fail in the first year, right? And I think that the main driver of that is business owners don't have the support that they need to become successful soon enough. And so then they give up. Or they don't have enough time allocated to focus on strategy and vision because they're stuck doing all the menial tasks and they can't delegate because they can't afford to delegate. And that's because US payroll costs are extremely high for any startups. And so, especially if you're not venture backed, it's very difficult to hire a US employee for $100,000 a year because you got to be making $1 million a year in revenue to justify that hire. And so, like, founders are wearing so many different hats so early on in their startup journey. And I think if you can access offshore talent early on, you can actually, you have a higher percentage chance of succeeding in that first year. And then for established companies, they can reduce a lot of overhead costs by hiring offshore and getting the same access to high quality talent just globally. And so, yeah, that's what I'm building now. And I'm so excited about it because this is exactly what I saw in my company, the Amazon aggregator. 90% of our talent was offshore, and we were able to hire 5 people for the price of one in the US. And so we were able to scale a huge team with a lot of people and weather the storm when the shit hit the fan during COVID, for example. That's me. That's my. I'm still pretty young. I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm a seasoned veteran in entrepreneurship. It's all I've done since I graduated college, but I'm probably like about 7 years in the game now. Still learning new things every day, and the landscape's always changing. So that's a little bit about me. Yeah.
I got a quick question. What would you say, because I want to clarify this for the listeners, because I know there is a difference. What would you say is the big differentiators between somebody working with you and your company or somebody utilizing a VA? Because what I hear is that, obviously clarify this, but what I hear is that you're essentially creating an opportunity in a normal position, 9 to 5 role, and the VA is more like supposed to assist the CEO. Is that the difference, or what would your definition be?
So first, let's clarify the definition of a VA. And I'm not opposed to VA. VAs are great. They're very similar to what I'm about to talk about. But a VA is a virtual assistant. You can use a virtual assistant any way you like. You can have them be an executive assistant, if you will, to support the CEO, or you can have a virtual assistant just do menial tasks that you want to delegate, that you don't want to, worry about. You can have them, become essentially a customer service rep. A VA can be multiple things. People just say VA because it's this term that was coined that's pretty easy to say, rolls off the tongue pretty well, but also it's kind of like associated with the Philippines in a way. Like kind of like, people just have this idea of like you can hire a VA in the Philippines at an hourly wage, pay them hourly, delegate a bunch of tasks, and then that's it. And they're not your employee. They're just contractor you've hired on Upwork or Fiverr that just does some tasks for you here and there when you need them. That's completely different than hiring a full-time customer service rep that's dedicated on, you know, doing this, a particular SLA. They have that particular SLA that they follow or have extensive knowledge about your product, you know what I mean? And just focus solely on your account. Or an executive assistant who is embedded into your organization full time, right? Working 40 hours a week dedicated to you and you only, right? So like we hire offshore talent for particular roles with a clear job description, similarly to one that you would hire in the US. They're just offshore and they are essentially they act as an employee. Now they're international contractors for tax reasons, but they actually act as what you know of what an employee is. They work 40 hours a week in your organization. They have a company email and they're embedded into your company Slack. So all the comms internally are congruent with or consistent with your whole team. And so like they're part of your culture and all that. A VA is not. A VA is not a part. It does not have a company email. It's not in your internal Slacks. They're not on your weekly team meetings, and they have other obligations. They have other clients. So that's the difference between a VA and hiring like a full-time dedicated worker offshore.
I think that's pretty impressive. I want to take it back to the fact that have you ever had an actual like 9 to 5 job, like even as like 15, 16 before going to college and starting this major e-com site, utilizing freelancers, contractors, and growing this entity? I just wanted, have you had like a 9 to 5 before this entrepreneurship? Because I think that's personally fascinating that you've been an entrepreneur for 7 years.
In high school, I worked at Dunkin' Donuts for 3 weeks and I quit. And then I went to college, started
My
selling on
man.
Amazon a little bit, but then like got yeah, and then kind of got like cold feet, not knowing what I was gonna do after college. The Amazon thing was okay. It wasn't like something I can like rely on full time. But I actually started working for my father for 6 months out of college. I didn't really like that. I found this company that rolls up Amazon private label assets, and they needed a brand manager. And I was like, this is like, it was the first time I read a job description when I was a young kid, and it actually aligned with my skill set. Because everything, when you're in college, you read all these, job descriptions at banks and things like that, and they just didn't align with what I liked. So I just didn't want to do it. But then I read the job description about like, this company is rolling up these Amazon private label assets, and that was super interesting to me. So I actually joined that company. I worked a 9 to 5 there for 10 months. I was in office for 3 months and then COVID hit. That was around that time. I left that company and then started my own business. I actually became their competitor and built my own roll up. And that's kind of how that's kind of my journey and how I kind of started.
So that mindset here when COVID hit, because I think that's very crucial, especially to our listeners. And during that time, anywhere from 2019, 2020, 2021, whenever that exact period was, that transition that you had mindset wise of, okay, I'm going all in on myself. I'm done with this 9 to 5. I'm going to become a competitor. Can you walk me through that mindset shift and really just doubling down on yourself? Did you have any doubts if that specific time period, and then from when you started to when you actually became profitable, or you had worries of maybe I should do something or get something? Because I know there's always that little fragment of doubt, right? Ben and I are both entrepreneurs. We've both been through that startup phase just like you have. But that mindset shift of going all in, becoming a competitor, becoming an entrepreneur, can you walk me through that? Taking a blast. Blast from the past.
Yeah, it actually is a very good question because, you know, it's also like pretty good advice for anyone trying to like go into entrepreneurship, whether you're young and you don't want to get a job and you want to go into entrepreneurship, or if you have a job and had a job for a while even and want to get into entrepreneurship but can't make that decision and you have the cold feet and it's hard to like make that jump. For me, I can only, advise what I know and through my own experiences, but like for me, when I had that job, I wasn't too comfortable yet because I wasn't getting paid a lot, so that's one thing. And so I didn't have a lot to risk. However, so anyway, so didn't have a lot to risk. It was a bit easier for me to make a decision. However, like I remember still thinking this is a risk. Like I'm about to try to do this on my own. How the hell am I gonna get comfortable with that? Like I'm so young, I don't have the experience. How am I gonna hire all these people? I need to raise money, and I'll get into that in a bit. So when COVID hit, the numbers in e-commerce were just actually out of this world. Like the most bizarre thing you'd ever see. Sales were up like 10x, 30x for some products. The whole company that I was working at, the numbers when COVID hit in aggregate were up like 5, 6, 7x in aggregate. So some products were up literally 30x, but yeah, like I swear to God. And there was the big issue in e-commerce at the time was stockouts. Everyone was stocking out. No one had inventory because everything was being gobbled up. I don't know what happened. You learn a lot about consumer behavior in e-commerce, which is actually really interesting. I was an econ major, and I learned so much more in that first 6 months when COVID hit than I did in my entire 4-year degree in economics. It was amazing. It was really just exciting to be a part of at that time. Really interesting time to get into business. So when COVID hit, and like I'm starting to like develop this business idea of like what I was learning at this company and getting interested in it, and like I knew I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, so I would just talk about it like with my family, and I'd be like, guys, this is crazy, like look at what's going on, like this market is insane. And I think when you have an idea for a new business or venture, and this is my point, is you should talk about it. People don't talk about their ideas. I don't know why. They think people are going to steal their idea, or they think people are going to say that their idea is dumb, and then they just never kind of follow through with it. I think for a lot of people who are hesitant to like jump into entrepreneurship, I think what's going to help you the most is if you talk about it with the people that are close to you. Talk about your ideas. Speak, because then you literally speak it into existence. Like you have an idea, you talk about it, someone gives you their perspective on it, and then you think about it. You can think with people, like use people as your sounding board, man. Like we're all human, we all talk about random stuff all the time. Just talk about your ideas, man, and that'll kind of get you over the hump to like make that decision to start that thing. So like even my offshore staffing agency, it's been a year now. I remember it took me like 6 months to begin. I had to find a partner. I wanted to find a partner. And I remember just thinking, like, I just got to talk about this. And then, like, just through that, a friend told me about another friend that I knew from 10 years ago who has been in the offshore staffing game. And I connected with him. I called him up after like 5 years not talking to him. And now he's my partner. You know what I mean? And we started this thing together. So it's like you literally need to speak. People people don't sell yourself short, man. Talk about your ideas. You'll never know what's gonna happen. If you feel like you need support or you need a partner, I promise you if you talk, you're gonna figure it out and you're gonna get that start you need.
What would you say? Because this is something we talk about a good bit on this podcast too, and I think everybody's answer is similar yet distinctly different. What would you say is one of the biggest things that helped you when you were determining or deciding on a business partner? I, much like you, I love doing things with other people, and I think that you could go a lot further together. Like you go, if you've ever heard that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, to go together. So I'm a big fan of doing things with partners, but it could be hard. You could have nightmare situations. How did you find a partner? How did you figure that out?
So everyone always says you want to find someone that complements your skill sets. That's very important. For me, well, like I do feel like I need a partner just because like when you have thoughts, you need to speak to someone, and like you can only speak to your best friend so much before he's like, dude, like I have a job too. Like, but when you have a partner and you have an idea, you can talk through it, and you meet with them on a recurring basis. You can call him up at 8 p.m. at night. He'll hear you out. When you make a decision, he holds you accountable. So there's a lot of benefits other than like skill sets when in just having a partner. And a lot of that has to do with just being able to talk to someone. It makes life a lot easier. Plus, like you don't want to be alone in the journey to making millions of dollars, right? Don't you want to get there with someone? I think that's much more rewarding personally. But in terms of choosing a partner, in my scenario, my partner had previous experience in the space. So that was really helpful. The dynamic today that I have with my partner is he runs the recruiting team and he runs the sales team. Well, he's the closer. He runs the closing team, I guess you can call it, and the recruiting team. I run the onboarding team, or I manage the onboarding team, the content team or marketing team, and the BDR team. So we set appointments on his calendar and he closes them. So it's a very good dynamic that we have. You know, you want to find someone with some sort of maturity, some level of maturity, equal to your or more, because like when you're dealing with a young, they be trigger happy and not as analytical or strategic find a partner, because like you want someone that's level not. I think that's very very important. And you also want someone to be able to like make sure you're not impulsive and you're on decisions. And it's hard to find a partner who like is 22 with those qualities. I'm not saying that 22-year-olds are not capable of building businesses. I'm definitely wrong. They are, but I'm just saying that like in some certain situations, like I'd prefer that in a partner personally.
So you mentioned ecom. I didn't know if you were really niche specific with the talent hackers. Are you catering to anybody that's essentially looking for a plug and play contractor employee, or are you niche specific to, ecom specifically?
Yeah. So we are niche specific to ecom. Most of our clients don't actually look for ecom talent, like the talent that we advertise. And so the truth is that we do place talent across the board. We hire developers for ecom business owners, but also SaaS founders. We also hire a ton of video editors, which is part ecom, part other industries. We help a ton of marketing agencies. There's a lot of overlap in roles for marketing agencies and ecom brand owners. We also hire EAs and you can call it virtual assistants if you like. And I mean, like I'm trying to think of a role that has come up. We hired an M&A analyst recently. So like it's not just ecom. We definitely have access to a wide range of talent.
So I'm curious, as a fellow virtual assistant owner, I've been doing this for probably about 5 years now, and AI is really contributing into how things have been doing as far as employment is concerned. And as far as the last year, I've noticed the hype for AI comparatively to offshore assistance. I feel like there's always going to be need for staffing companies, especially offshore. When it first started with major corporations like 30, 40 years ago, I mean, crap is even longer than that. It was a big hype, right, for saving money, especially when big companies like Verizon Wireless were doing it. And then everybody's like, great, we could save money and liability is no longer a concern, right? The list kind of go on and on. With AI kind of taking over this kind of agent role, what do you see the future like for offshore employment?
I actually think that AI is helping the industry more than it's hurting it. I don't think that the positions that I hire for are very similar to the roles that are being hired in the US. And so like a big part of our pitch is, hey, like we can hire the same roles you're looking to hire for in the US, but just offshore at a fraction of the cost without hurting quality. And so it's like question like what do you think are replace the roles that are the people that we hire are like digital marketers and brand managers that are actually that require a human touch for whichever brand or product or service you're offering online. So I don't think AI is going to hurt us. I actually think it's going to help us. I think it's going to increase creativity. And all of my employees internally actually use AI to support their work, and they've just become more productive and efficient. And I think for most jobs out there, that's what people are seeing. That's what companies are seeing. In terms of like future replacements, like what roles AI is going to replace in the future, I don't really know. I don't know how AI can give you that human touch. You know what I mean? I think the next big thing would be AI agents, though. Like I think we have a lot for AI agents, which are going to be unique. I don't know much about them, but I know that AI agents are basically, it's AI trying to literally trying to replace full-time positions by being able to do the tasks that a normal human is doing. But for like, I don't think there's a difference between offshore talent and talent domestically. So whichever jobs would be affected in the U.S., I think would also affect the same role type offshore.
As you see, you're building this business right now. Obviously, you're analyzing what the changes could be and what the upcoming future could be. But I'm definitely curious. With every business, there's some sort of issue. I know you said it took you about 6 months to start building this out. What's been an issue or a problem that you've resolved and overcome that was really a chokehold in your business, and how did you do it?
Yeah, I mean, a problem before. I don't know. We face problems all the time, right?
Yeah.
And like I'm only thinking about my most recent problems. But I guess like when you have a problem, like right now I have a big problem. Like it's not easy to let the world know about your service or your product, right? There's a lot of costs associated with it. You can only show pay to play. So that's, I think, a big problem for a lot of businesses. That's the reason why I'm doing this podcast, maybe to get more exposure. But there's never really like one solution to any problem. I think like it's baby steps, and especially in the case of you know booking more appointments or marketing in general, you're gonna learn things every single day. Like you're gonna have to try 100 different tools. You're gonna have to try. I'm exaggerating. You're gonna have to try several different tools, several different platforms, several different ways of moving the business, not just with marketing, but also in sales, in recruiting. And I think like you just have to be able to pivot quickly and like recognize when something's not working and be able to like make a decision quickly, because if not, time is your enemy. If you can't solve a problem or like a big problem soon enough, people in your organization have less work to do, they lose interest, revenues decline, cash flows fade, and your time's up, and you got to go belly up. So I think like just being able to every day wake up and act fast is the best way to solve your problems. I don't know if that even
I
answered
like
your
it.
question,
You're
but that's
you're
just me high level, like how I think about problems, because if you dwell on them and you like get demotivated, that's not going to do you any good. You have to. It's part of the game. We're all playing a game here. This is a game. It's Yu-Gi-Oh, right, Shane?
To be
I
honest, I
like
mean
it.
that's the best part about being an entrepreneur and a business owner is the journey, right? It's waking up early in the morning, laying out all the problems that you currently have, putting down your aspirations and short-term and long-term milestones that you actually have a goal to achieve and accomplishing it. And then
You
once you
know,
finally achieve and get to that point, guess what? Now there's new bottlenecks, there's new things to overcome, there's new goals to hit. I love that. You actually have like a purpose, right?
I think it's funny too because Raz, what I love that you were saying in there, and I think it's something that we should touch upon, is the creativity part of it. It's funny because this is maybe I was supposed to be an entrepreneur even since I was a kid, because when I was young and I would have to sit through those math classes, I would take the tests, I wouldn't show the work, and even if I did show the work was wrong, but I got the right answer. And it was funny because the teachers would always take points off my test, even if I got the right answer, because I did the wrong work and somehow still arrived at the right answer. But that's the funny thing about entrepreneurship. There's no such thing, the right steps to the right solution. It's getting creative. It's figuring it out no matter what kind of adversity you're facing, knowing that seven different ways or several different ways could work. So I love that you brought that up. Thanks for sharing that with the audience.
This is how I know that you are younger than me because when I was that age, you didn't have to show your work. You write the answer down, you either get it right or you're wrong. The teachers didn't care about, how did you figure it out? That's funny. Well, the whole school system is going downhill, especially with AI coming in, but I'm going to go on a
All
tangent
right.
if we go down that
All
path.
right. No, no, leave it back to Raz.
So, Raz, you've been doing this for 12 months. That was, as I've kind of shared with Vin, the first 2 years when I started my offshore agency was probably the most exciting time of my entrepreneurship life because of all the new unforeseen things, bottlenecks that we had to overcome, positions that I was put in, sleepless nights that we got into. And now being into this 5 years in, things don't really change. things just your bottlenecks become bigger and harder to figure out, even though you have everything delegated and you're doing all the right things, and there's still shit. You're like, okay, so we're doing everything right, and we still can't overcome this. So my question for you here
I was
is,
waiting
what
for
are the
that.
next 12 months look like for talent hackers? What are you trying to achieve here besides world domination?
I thought Shane was just venting. I'm glad the question came at the end.
Here's how it is. You have to give a purpose.
No, it's a good question. I mean, I never liked that question. Not to, it's a good question, but I personally never liked it. Like,
Throw
what
it
does your
out.
next 12 months look like? We definitely have our financial goals set out. The truth is, it's a for-profit business. I'm not running a charity, so obviously I want to make money. Um,
100%.
I can throw numbers at you and they could be cool or whatever, but that's not important for the audience. Important is that I continue to move my business forward, whether that's financially, whether that's in with such the people on my team, whether it's providing a better service to my clients, getting better in various different areas because we have like departments. And some departments are so if I want to build a business that's going to add value. If I want to exit one day, I need to build a business that's going to be able to sustain itself even when I'm not there. And that's really the true goal. So I need to be able to have the systems and processes in place so that if I step away for a month, the business is still flat or going up, ideally going up in terms of revenue and profitability. So that's a mature business, and that's a business that I want. I mean, that's how you make money in your sleep, as they say, right? So that's the goal. So however I this year, I don't know if I'll achieve that this quarter. Maybe I achieve it in the summer. Maybe I achieve it next year. I don't know. But that's the ultimate goal, right? And so that requires SOPs, documentation, trainings, hiring additional people, cutting out people who are weaklings, finding better clients, providing the better service quality, getting more clients, sharing my service with the world, and sharing the incredible talent pool I have access to. So it's a combination of many different things. I think we all want to have, but that's not important. What's important is getting the business to the point where it's self-sustaining.
A well-oiled machine. I couldn't have said it any better. It's amazing. And I hope it's next month.
I hope it's tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah. I actually didn't know, Shane,
Uh,
that you were in the staffing game for 5 years. That's awesome. What's the name of your company?
The VA group.
The V Group.
We
I heard of you guys.
oh, well, that's
Nice.
exciting.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Shout out.
hopefully only good things.
I heard, are you a part of the Nucleus Network by any chance?
Yeah, Jake.
Jake? Yeah. Okay, that's how I know you guys. I mentioned you guys, that's why. Very cool.
Yeah, we had Jake on here. When did we
about
have
2 months
Jake on
ago.
here? About yeah. Yeah, I love the Nucleus Network. Shout out to Jake and Michael. But, back to this here, the main part, the main demographic that watch this show are entrepreneurs, people who are thinking about getting into an entrepreneurship. I mean, last time we checked, it was almost 90% predominantly males who view this. And that's what I think that's amazing is predominantly your workforce career, actually it is entrepreneurship. Is there any advice that you can give to people who are working, this 9 to 5 that are thinking about transitioning into entrepreneurship? I mean, even part-time or full-time.
Yeah, I mean, I did give that advice earlier to just talk about your ideas. I do think that's very, very important. But in terms of like, yeah, I mean, it's a scary thing for people, I think. Like, they call it, especially when you're at the $150,000 a year mark in terms of salary at a job or 200,000 a year, they call it the golden handcuffs. Because you're living a great life. You can support a family of three, maybe. You can have your weekends. You can focus on your exercise and your health and go out and friends and social life. But you can't really save too much. You can't really compound your wealth too much. You're probably going to be stuck working a job for 40 years. So I think my advice is like, ask yourself, do you want to spend the next 40 years of your life, fulfilling someone else's dream? Or do you think that you have what it takes to actually create something of value for yourself and your family? And just know that, like, in entrepreneurship, you're probably going to figure that out in the first 2 years. Honestly, the first 6 months, I would say, to see if you got what it takes or not. But you don't know if you have it. You haven't actually tried. And so I just encourage you to try. Take the weekends to try.
Mm.
You know what I mean? You have, what is it, 104 days off a year. outside of holidays. And those are your weekends. So you can't say you don't have time. You can at least try to see if you have it, if you want it. And if you don't want it, dude, that's great. No problem. More power to you. You probably have a better life than us. You know what I mean? But it just depends on who you are, and just go for it, man.
Yeah, we were talking
I
about
love
that
it.
mindset there on a couple previous episodes where essentially it's if you want that employee lifestyle where you're working the 9 to 5 and you go home and you're with your family, with your friends, you have a stress-free life, which, as you're saying, is amazing. It really is. But if you want something better and you're talking about it and complaining about it, but you're not doing anything about it, that's on you, right? If you want something better, then go do it. If you're not, then stop and just live your life. I think that's the only frustrating part is, people that say things that just don't do it. And you're right, just do it. You have 104, you said days off essentially. I don't know, remember the exact number. I think it was 104, 105 days off. I agree. On any time off, just go do it. That's all it is. Nike, please don't sue us, but I mean it's a great quote.
Yeah, we didn't infringe on copy. So, Raz, I got two final questions for you, my man, as we come close to the end of our show here today. So, the premise of our show, for those of you who've been here for a while, you know it. For those of you that are new, our show is called the 1% Podcast, is we believe that being a 1%er is a way of life. It is how are you trying to achieve greatly within a field that you're looking to excel in. You don't have to have $1 billion. You just have to work at something until you are in the top percent of it. So, Raz, our question to you is, what is your version of a 1% lifestyle?
It's a very good question. For me, it's about being amongst the 1%ers, but also being enabled to support people outside of the 1% and teaching and helping other people get to the top 1%. That's what a 1%er is to me. It's like being amongst top 1% of the world, whether it's financially, by the way, or if it's in terms of health, or if it's in terms of mindset, in terms of growth. It doesn't necessarily need to be financial. So that's what it means to me. I love it. I love it. I think mindset's a big part of it. That's how I think about the 1%.
I love that, man. I learned something a while back in my life, and it's a quote that always stuck with me about mindset. Because people always say mindset's everything, but I've come to learn that mindset isn't everything, though it does impact everything. And I think that that's a really good, important frame when people think about mindset.
I like that.
Absolutely. Raz, last thing, my man. If people wanted to get in touch with you, if they wanted to hire or utilize your agency, how can people get in touch? What should people do going from here if they want to continue this journey of learning more about you, what you have going on, and your company?
Yes, we have a LinkedIn. It's called Talent Hackers. Talent Hackers. Website is trytalenthackers.com. You can email me at raz@trytalenthackers.com. Phone number 201-732-6338. Phone's dead. You can call me anytime. I don't mind. Anyone can have my number. And yeah, just I have social media as well at Raz Malice. And that's how you can contact me. And we can help you find a full-time dedicated worker offshore. Someone who's going to work on your team 40 hours a week like any other employee, just at a fraction of the cost of a U.S. equivalent. So let us help you. Or you can go to the VA group and get a VA.
Awesome, man.
They're also great. I heard great things about them.
I paid him. I paid him to say that. Don't. I'm just kidding. Please, because what we do, as as Raz mentioned, is different from what Talent Hackers does. So if you are looking to offset your day-to-day employee, go to Talent Hackers.
I got an even better idea. Get a full-time day-to-day employee at Talent Hackers, then set them up with a virtual assistant to help manage their menial tasks so they could be a more optimized employee within
There
your
we go.
company.
That's
We're all
genius.
agreeing with Ben.
That's a really good idea, honestly,
And
though.
then don't forget, right? And don't forget to also get yourself a mental performance coach to optimize your team
There we
after
go.
they are fully delegated, optimized in their position. They must now optimize their mindset, their mental and emotional well-being. Guys, we have the triple threat here.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
for all of you listening, you just have to hire all three of us, and your organization is going to be wildly phenomenal.
Vin's is going to be the most expensive cost. I'm just letting you know. It's mindset, right? You got to get right.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to believe that it's worth it.
Amen.
It's invaluable.
I love it.
It's
Raz, thanks so much for joining us here today, man. Please stick around for a moment after we end the recording here. But guys, as always, thanks so much for checking out another episode of the 1% Podcast. Please like, share, follow, subscribe, comment, and tell a friend or two. Reach out to Raz. Do it all. As always, I'm your host, Vin, and
And I'm Shane. Bye,
that
guys.
was Raz. See you, everybody.